I
Yeah.
edit, so not to worry. I'm just going to click record just so I don't have to worry
Sure.
about it. But yes, thank you so much. It was so funny. I got the message this morning. I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute. That was four. I said, wait, go back and look to make sure you didn't screw up because I have done that. I have. It's like
Yeah.
too much on your
Timing.
plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Especially the time zone.
I know. I went back. Oh, what did I do that for? I didn't mean to do that. I went back and I looked and I'm like, no. I said, I didn't mess up. I said, but that was 4:30 this morning. I mean, I didn't hear anything because I turned the phone on do not disturb, so I didn't hear
Yeah.
anything. But
Yeah. That's
but I'm like,
good.
oh no. But it's interesting. I have to figure it out. You're not the first person who said it's not working. Like you send the link
Yeah.
and when it comes time for the meeting, it doesn't work. It's like almost nine excuse me, 98% of the time. But then when I resend it, it works. It's like, who knows?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still new to this also.
They have I think they grew really big very quickly because of the need. And
Oh, yeah.
so I think it sometimes it just doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. Or I
Yeah.
just can't figure it out. So, honey, this is so cool that we get a chance to chat and I hear your
Yes, it is.
voice.
Yeah.
It's
I don't think
it's
you've heard it. I've heard yours.
no, you've heard mine because I run my mouth on IG.
It's okay. I
but
love it.
but I haven't heard your voice. It's always so cool because it's I don't know, it's a different kind of connection.
Yeah.
Usually we're just
Yeah.
you just do these pictures and you chat with people and you're sending little messages and it's very different when you hear someone's voice, right? So
I agree. Yeah.
yeah, it's very cool. You have a very nice sort of smooth sort of cadence and tone. Very nice. I love
Thank
your
you.
voice, honey. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. I've always hated it, so I'm glad you do.
No, it's beautiful. It's nice. It's yeah. Don't we all hate our voices? What is that though? I think
I don't know.
it's so strange. I don't want to keep you, so I'm guess we're just gonna chat. I mean, I think it'd be
Yeah.
interesting for people to know a little bit about who you are, how we connected,
Hmm.
which I'm always struggling to remember how I connect with people. Well, we've been connected a long time now.
A
Um,
long time. Yeah.
yeah. And, like what you do. And then we'll sort of chat about your yoga story, history, and all that kind of good stuff. So you
Yeah.
are, yeah, tell us where are you, who are you, what is your name, and we'll go from there.
My name is Annette. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I believe that I met you, like Tally in the MS challenge, like years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a professor that passed away quite a few years ago after I graduated from chiropractic college that had severe MS and ended up, succumbing to the illness. And so that's why I did the challenge, sort of in honor of him, because he was a great guy, and there weren't a lot of great guys at that college, including the professors. So he has sort of a special place in my heart as far as my education, being in a schooling environment, clinical environment, really.
Uh-huh.
And you've been
Hmm.
in that situation, so you know how rigorous that can be
Yeah,
as a student.
right.
Yeah. So I believe so. My first experience with yoga was a prenatal class, and that was when I was pregnant with my second daughter. I happened to work in an office at that time that had a gym attached to it, so I went. I didn't really pursue it, so that was really just that one off, basically. My next experience was a yoga studio that I rented space out of, and that was a Cambridge location. I will say it was not my cup of tea. I did take some great hot yoga classes, but it was sort of um, that feeling of it was very type A, and it was a lot of skinny white women,
Mhm.
sort of vegan group of people that, sort of, I don't know if they look down at you, but they see you as differently.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I didn't really stay within that either. Um, I ended up doing some yoga training at a second office that I rented out within a yoga studio. I always am attracted to yoga studios, so that if they have a space, I always bring the chiropractic in. They're so complimentary in so many
Oh,
ways.
cool. Mhm.
Yeah. And the nice part about that, we had a very diverse group of teachers. We had, the owner was just really had this beautiful soul and, really open heart. And so I was immediately attracted to that studio. There were different body types, different races, there were, different religions. It was really more attractive to me in a sense where I felt like I belonged. So I did my
Mhm.
teacher there, and I had a great class. I had a lot of wonderful instructors, and we trained primarily in Ashtanga. So,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
so I listened to a couple of the other videos, and people see yoga and fitness separately. Where for me, it's all kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
Uh, for myself, where I apply things like drishti and so forth for other types of exercises. I mean, there are definitely, it's more spiritual with yoga, puts you in a better place. But with, I'm a lifter also, or I was for, I have not been consistent for the last couple of years, but it puts you in a different mindset.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I think attracts me to Ashtanga is it's kind of a very athletic form of yoga.
Right.
So I kind of
Mhm.
was reliving some gymnastics stuff from my past, and it was great. Yeah. And so, I haven't really been in a steady yoga practice for a few since then, which is too bad because I started focusing on lifting. Um, and then, so here and there I'll do uh, the challenges, and
Mhm.
I like start kind of getting back into it and at least taking some time to go back into yoga, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
it
wish I
does.
had time. Yeah, I wish I had a little more energy because then I would, and time to. Unfortunately, I live in a very small apartment and I have very little space to do any kind of yoga um, practice, full practice. I do
Mhm.
have a park next door. So in the summer, I might try to resume some kind of yoga practice at that time where it can be outside.
Mhm.
But
Are
as
you
you know,
are you close? Is your office close to where you live?
not really, and that kind of
No.
adds away
Yeah.
the different as far as the amount of time I have. So it's about 40 minutes away in Salem, Mass.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is far. I
yeah, it's
didn't
not
realize
close.
the I didn't realize your office was in Salem. That is far.
Yeah,
Oh, geez. So every day you got to do
it
that?
is. Yeah, but it's a great job and it's worth it. We have a great staff. I felt more at home there than any other practice I had worked in. And we have
Mhm.
such a variety of patients. We have the very, very elderly. We have people coming in for wellness. We have people coming in for car accidents, just some people for maintenance. And it's a really good spot. That's what I like about the place.
Wow.
So,
And you have a young
yeah,
family too. I mean, it's really hard to carve out time. For
yeah.
me, it's like, you know, no kids around. Well, there's literally no family around besides Fred. But your life, the lifestyle is very different. I think if I had
Yeah.
started, I wish I had started asana practice way back then when I had the kids were around as kids, so to speak.
Yeah.
It would have been such
Yes.
a
Uh-huh.
benefit for me because I think at that point in time, your life feels a little bit like it's on a treadmill. You look left, you look right. It's like, okay, there's a school concert, there's this, there's that, there's work travel, and it's finding time for a practice is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, because most of my, free time here is, by the time I get home from work, I'm exhausted. It's a 10-hour day at the office plus the commute, and uh, and so it's pretty, as I'm sure you're familiar with, it's a pretty physical job. So,
Yeah.
I'm working on patients all day, doing tissue work, adjusting, different body types, different um, conditions. So it takes its toll on me. Sometimes I get close to that burnout. I've been there before, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that you're familiar with patient care. It's sort of easy to get into that burnout stage.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come home, I clean, I relax, and I really need to carve out some time to
Mm-hmm.
do some self-care, and that includes yoga. So that's sort of where I am right now, because I was pretty diligent about it for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
and just doing it here and there is not enough.
Mm-hmm. Are your kids virtual school because of COVID now? Are they?
Yes, they have been since March. So
Oh, since March,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah. And again, it's a small place. They get aggravated with each other. They're home all the time, and so is my husband. He's unemployed. So you know what I mean. So it's very distracting, especially if you were to do something like a asana practice or something. It's hard
Right.
to do
Right.
that. And, so, but my goal is to get back into some kind of yoga routine, like a
Mm-hmm.
more regular yoga
Mm-hmm.
routine.
Mm-hmm. Do you meditate?
I did for so many years, and I still do, just not as much as I used to. I was a Tibetan Buddhist for a long time,
Oh, you
so
were. Oh,
so I'm very, that's another issue, is if I do meditate, I'm so deep into it, no, not the kind that people talk through. It's
right.
really just full dissociation from myself. And so if I get into it, it's hard to get out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, my version of meditating is different than a lot of people, but I do try to apply it in a way that I'm not just completely out of it. I
Right.
do breathing meditations on the regular basis, the way I learned initially how to meditate. So um, it's very accessible for people. It's breathing in and then focusing on the exhales,
Mm-hmm.
just focus on the exhales, and it really helps put you into a mindset where you're, just getting everything else out of your brain.
Right. Right. But I asked the question because I know you know this, but so many people forget that asana is not the only thing, the be all and end all of yoga. It's just like so
Oh
much
yeah.
more.
Oh yeah.
But I think when we are focused, and I'm talking about myself too, when we're focused at the physical practice, I know for me, when I don't do it, I can get down on myself with like, well, you didn't do yoga today, and it's like, yes, I did. I meditated last night before I went to bed. I had my legs up the wall. Isn't that, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
right? I meditated in the morning. My body I wasn't feeling it, this morning. And pretty much I try to do an asana practice of something. I don't care if it's on the foam roller and all I did was cat cow. It's something, you know what I mean? So
Oh yeah. Well, I do stuff like that. I do a lot of twists during the day, and
yeah.
it helps me sort of maintain my posture throughout the kind of work I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I'm very focused on just the spinal work, especially. Cat cow is an amazing spinal exercise. I like to rehab a lot of people with cat cow.
Oh.
Um, well, yeah, and sort of the twists, like the oh my god, I'm losing the name right now. Mauritiasana, I think it's called. There's
Yeah, yeah.
four, and the second one is, you see often where you sort of have your legs in a normal place. You put your elbow on the
Right.
other side of it, and then you twist. So,
Mm.
that kind of thing is so beneficial, and so I do add that into my regular day,
Mhm.
mostly for my own health, and definitely pull out the foam roller, pull out some of the other props, which is really good.
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's how I integrate it. And then the breathing, if I feel stressed, I do a lot of and then it calms my brain and then I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. You live, and some people may not know where Cambridge is, Cambridge, Mass,
Mhm.
and so the makeup. I'm familiar, but
Yeah,
why don't you
I
share
know.
a little bit about the way the makeup of Cambridge so people have an understanding? Because I think when you said about the various places where um,
Hmm.
when you finally found the place that you were comfortable, you said it was a diverse place. And I think for a
Yes.
lot of people, finding a diverse yoga studio is not all that simple.
Right. Right. So Cambridge is pretty diverse in its own way, and there are different neighborhoods that are just completely different than the others. So I live in East Cambridge, which borders Boston. I'm right on the Boston line. I'm right on the Somerville line. So those communities are very similar to where East Cambridge is. So I'm close to MIT. That's where
Okay.
I live.
Hmm.
Um, it is a traditionally Portuguese neighborhood.
Hmm.
Some Italian. It's not the Italian that I'm used to with my Sicilian background, but it was traditionally Italian and Portuguese. So when you start just sort of drifting away from the few blocks that we kind of have that's in our neighborhood, you
Hmm.
branch out. You get really multicultural in the next area, which is where my children go to school,
Hmm.
which is wonderful. And we do have some of that in this neighborhood. This is an old neighborhood. This is, if you came here, you wouldn't feel like you were in the city. But, less than a mile away, we have Central Square, which is just a hotbed of culture.
Hmm.
Uh, and then when you get into Harvard Square, that's when it starts changing to the very rich, the people that
Hmm.
have money. You see mansions, you see all these, very old brickstone buildings, and it's a whole other world over there. And having grown up in, I would say, poverty, that's a
Hmm.
whole, that social disparity is something that I don't feel used to those types of people. So that first studio that I was talking about, that was the attraction to the people that did go there. And I think that's where I felt, you know, sort of displaced in some way.
Hmm.
Um, it was not the group of people that I grew up with. So, and I come from a military background,
Hmm.
super diverse. I grew up in like military. Both of my parents are vets, and so everybody. My father sees them all as brothers. Like
Right.
they don't see themselves as different in any way. They're all brothers, and that includes everyone. There's in his what I've observed.
Right. Hmm.
So, so that's a different background than somebody that just grew up. Like
True.
my father originally came from the Midwest, very rural farming community. Later on, he moved to St. Louis, so he got more exposure to different cultures and so forth. But a different life than that. So I didn't have any of that. I don't have any really hometown or anything. so
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
having come from that, I feel so disconnected from people in that first studio. And we've talked about Yoga Journal. So,
Yeah.
our issues with yoga,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that studio is like a yoga journal studio,
Gotcha. I
and
got it.
I, yeah, I know, and you've been around New England, and it's definitely vastly different from city to city. And we got the huge cities. Cambridge is a pretty urban area. um, Despite Harvard being there, that is not the urban area. We live in
Right.
the urban area.
Hmm.
So, and then of course Boston. So, the experiences I have had as far as the cultural makeup, lots of Portuguese, more so Brazilian now.
Hmm.
We have a lot of people from the Caribbean, a lot of Haitian people.
Hmm.
And we're all sort of, and there's some Hispanic community as well. So we're all sort of in the same area,
Hmm.
and
I
it's
remember you
it's
you
great.
you
And
shared all the goodies that you get from all your your clients slash patients with all that
I
diversity. I
know.
said I would be in heaven.
Oh yeah, yeah. With the Dominicans and the Haitians, they just love to feed you, and they're really just very sweet, loving people, and it's really, it means a lot, especially
Yeah.
when it's from patients or from people that I'm close to. Like my boss always brought in, Haitian food, and so I got accustomed to eating Haitian food for a while, and Dominican food. Haitians, Dominican, because I was working a heavily, I worked with Haitians for about 13 years, so I'm very used to
Uh,
their culture. And then I started working in an area that was, generally Hispanic, Dominican primarily, and I got used to their culture. So the Hispanic people I've been around were all from Mexico, or they were Mexican Americans
yeah,
down in New Mexico, because so it's totally different,
totally.
can't even compare. But I will say that they do, both cultures love to feed you, and they're both
Yes.
very open and loving. So they have that in common. The Haitians have that in common. It's been a wonderful experience working with, all these great people, and I work very hard to bond with my patients,
Mm,
and they appreciate that.
mm.
So, and as I'm sure you, with your patients, and it's, if you can give, if you can be intuitive and
Mm-hmm.
give them love, just touching them or talking to them, it makes a world of difference, and
Definitely.
they want to come back and see you. So, and sometimes they give you gifts, food or whatever.
Yeah,
Food art.
food.
I
Food is
consider
good.
food. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think when I'm thinking of a couple of comments from I uploaded Tally's chat, and I've got a couple of comments from people who just feel like they are just getting in tuned with the broad base of diversity in a way they've never had before. And I think there's
Mhm.
something to be said for when you grow up in a place, regardless of what your race is, when you grow up with diversity, you're, it's not even, I don't want to say the word is forced. It's not forced. It's just a part of your life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, which it was mine, of course.
Yes. And so it's very interesting because there are so many societies where there are just so few people of color. Period. The end. Lots
Yeah.
of them here in Europe. It's like you're hard
Oh,
pressed to find people of color. Um, but I think when you're able, like your kids, you say your kids go, and I know you've talked with me a little bit about where your kids go to school, and the Portuguese and the it's the exposure that becomes life lessons. They will be so far ahead
froze a
of
little bit.
so many other kids. You know what I'm trying to say? It's unfortunate that now they're virtually schooled,
Oh yeah,
but along with the world virtually schooled, so to speak.
I know.
But
Hmm.
you can't put a price on what that means in terms of lifelong, like it did for you, lifelong exposure and comfort.
Yeah, yeah, because I do feel comfort in that. That's my, that's how
Yeah.
I grew up. So, like you said, it's different than communities where there's no diversity. There's no, um, the social disparity is different now that, you know
Right.
where my
Uh-oh.
father grew up, this very particular place. So they come from farmers, and these people that don't have a lot of money. Where I go to parts of Cambridge, and it's nothing like that. Even
Right.
when I lived in Germany, and I lived southwestern Germany, the city was, sort of an older city. The diversity was pretty much like Turkish people. There were a lot of students from Africa and Asia at the
Mm-hmm.
university. Um, but that was about it. So you go into, like, one of my experience, and I don't think this exists anymore, but I went into a music store to look at CDs. They had a section called Black Music.
No
That's all it
kidding.
said, Black Music. No separation of any different genres or anything. And I was just blown away because I'd never seen anything like that in my life. It just it just baffles me because, we, every genre, has, black musicians. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why I say black, instead of people of color. So a few years ago, I had used the term people of color. And I have a friend that got kind of upset because she thought I was saying colored,
Oh,
and yeah. And so I contacted a couple of my friends, girls that, from black families and so forth. And they're like, you know what, just say black. They're like,
just say
it's
black.
just easier, that way you don't have any question, and then it gets into the semantics, like you can be from Africa and you can be from South Africa and why, and or they're not necessarily American, they're from Haiti or they're from, so it just starts getting really complicated. So that's why my friend said, just say black, you know what I mean? So,
And now we
I just wanted
have
to give you a little back.
and now we have BIPOC, Black Indigenous People of Color. So, it's like it can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a struggle. I know it's really funny you say that because I still have students in my classes, and some people may know a lot. I know but some people
Mm-hmm.
don't know that I teach university online, and like I'm teaching right now. I'm teaching race and ethnicity, and invariably
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a white student that will say, and colored people, and I just go, and I'm on the computer. So I know that
Oh,
reaction.
my.
So I have to
Oh my god.
so I have to,
Oh my
find my very nice professional, my professional
god.
words of saying, here's a few things for you to consider when you use that term. There is history behind that. And I go through the whole thing. And
Okay.
I also
Mm-hmm.
understand that people can be so removed from Jim Crow, so to speak, and don't even have any clue of
Oh
what that
yeah, yeah.
means. Um, but
Right.
and in there, I always get, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. It's like it's not an apology. Now that
Yeah.
my reaction
Education.
to that is not going to be the same as someone else's reaction to it. However,
Right.
here are some other terms like your friend said that you can use, or you ask people how do they self-identify. Simplest way to deal with it.
Yeah.
How do you identify?
No,
You know, you can look at people. What you see is never what you get. I tell people all the time, don't assume.
true.
You can get
No,
yourself in
never.
big trouble by assuming who you're dealing with. Boy, have I heard stories
No,
of
I
people.
bet. I bet.
It's
Being in your field.
it's fascinating for sure. So when you think about the issue, like we talked about the yoga journal, which they keep trying to get their act together, along with
They
a
are
few things.
trying.
Yeah, they are trying. They got their coattail pulled big time. Um, when you look at the issue of wellness, I would say inclusion and diversity and wellness in its broad sense. You're in wellness, I'm in wellness, and we're not just talking about yoga specifically. But when you look at
Right.
that and its connection to disparities, health disparities,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to see if I can formulate the question. Um, what do you think needs to happen for people to sort of understand that there is a connection? Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Something that I'm learning a lot from my boss. He's extremely educated in nutrition. So we like to give out um, information about supplements and
Hmm.
diet and including that. And we always say, it doesn't have to be organic. It's what you have access to. We have some supplements that are very affordable, like curcumin, and just even if you're not quite changing your diet, at least add those things in. I don't
Hmm.
know if that's answering the question that you're asking, um,
Hmm.
but food access is a huge thing in my opinion.
Yes.
And I worked
Yes.
with I volunteered as a director for the board of directors many years ago at this point for a food co-op,
Hmm.
and I learned a lot about food access, in that time, and making sure the food is there, different varieties of food like Hispanic food, making sure everything reaches somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have different price ranges. They have, because I mean, I can't afford half that organic food on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis. As much as I like to, it's like, my husband's really good about growing our food. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of greens out there, and we talked about this before, like
I
your
know. I'm
access
so
to
jealous of your
getting a call.
collard green.
I know. Yeah, and tomatoes, all these things you can grow, and it's so simple, even just to have one plant, just to grow your own food. So nutrition is a huge thing, access is a huge thing, making food affordable,
Mm.
and, that was that's a big way I see it. And then just simple supplements. I mean, just to help with, because there's a lot of disparity in the healthcare world as far as, things like diabetes, or
It's
they
true.
affect some races more than others, you know what I mean? And so, like, vitamin D was a perfect example. And I'm so glad,
Yes.
we've been talking about vitamin D forever, so that was something I was educated in. Now all of a sudden MDs are talking about it. And
Talking
it's like,
about it. Yeah.
this is, basic biochemistry. This is basic
Mm.
nutrition. I mean, we learned about it first year of chiropractic college. So
Right. Right.
so, integrating that natural medicine for patients, they won't have a huge hospital bill. They hopefully they have some kind of, in Massachusetts you have access to healthcare no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
but not all states have that. So
No, I know.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is, yeah,
And
there's a huge problem. Just when you talk about healthcare disparities, being able to have health insurance.
mhm,
In the
mhm.
states, I mean, our sort of um, coming here, being expats, it's like mind blowing, sort of the differences, honestly. Um, the fact that you talk about there isn't an organic section because everything is organic.
And Europe, it's a whole other situation. That's
I know, but so when we went back to the States, you probably saw that post, and I went into the Publix and I went to buy some food, and I'm like, this is what I just spent $85 for like this little bit of food. Are you freaking kidding me? it's,
so crazy. It's so crazy.
it's like, what did
And
I
I
get?
know,
Two tomatoes, a banana.
oh my
um,
God, I
um,
know.
so it's very interesting. I I'm so happy that I get it. As I ask people if they're interested in, would they be willing to have a conversation with me? Because I'm trying to find a balance so people get exposure, not only just yogis that are in the States, because I'm from the States, so
Oh yeah.
now, so I've been having these conversations. I can't wait to post some of them. And I have one coming up with Noah, and she's from Egypt. And she says, "Oh, I can tell you stories. I'll tell you now." And I'm like, "No, no, no, don't tell me now.
Wait
Wait
for
some."
the program.
Yeah, I want it to be like real. But I guess I'm saying all that to say that in the States the healthcare disparities are just huge, and we can see them. It often, I'll say to people, it often looks like race based on what and who you're looking at, but it really is about social class.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And you can go to a poor or poor-ish neighborhood and you will see the disparities all around you, from the environmental racism. They can't put billboards of cigarettes up anymore, or
Oh yeah.
alcohol, but they can do certain things that just smell of it, so to
Oh,
speak.
yep. I see that a lot
um and the
here. Mhm.
food deserts, going into a corner store to buy like a tomato, and they want you to pay $2 for like one tomato because it's a corner store.
Mhm.
um s- so all of that has an impact, and I think yoga in its fullest sense, I mean
Mhm.
the big picture yoga, not just you know put your legs up the wall, um has such a place in communities where there is that kind of stuff lacking. And I
Yep.
wish we, and I'm just, it's the collective we, could find ways to bring it more to those communities that probably would get the most benefit, you know,
Oh yeah.
health
Yeah.
wise.
And that's what I like about those the drop-in classes where you just pay what you can give. You know?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
Community
Yeah.
classes. I
Mm-hmm.
used to teach a community class. It was free. It was a donation class. You could donate if you wanted to, and you didn't have to pay anything if
Yeah.
you didn't want
If you
to.
want.
And it
Mhm.
was at the park. And well, it was nice to live in Florida at the time because you could kind of do that all year round.
Yeah.
People would
Yeah. Definitely.
people would just
Better.
drop by, and then occasionally there were a few people who were regulars, and they would give extra because they know somebody just came and they didn't have it. And it was just such a wonderful feeling to
Oh,
be
that's
able
nice. Yeah.
to give in that regard. So
Yeah.
here's a last question for you. If you were to say or maybe it's more like, what would you say to someone the best way to become comfortable with inclusion and diversity as a white
Yeah.
person? What would you say?
Well, I would say exposure.
Mm,
Just exposure, like don't just do things in your own community. Don't just do things in your own culture. Just
mm,
get out there. I take my girls to Caribbean Carnival. Some people don't
fun.
know other white people that think the dancing is inappropriate or the costumes are inappropriate. I'm like, look, these people come from tropical areas, and these costumes that they're wearing are based on a lot of history.
Yeah.
Just you got to look at it from out of the box. I didn't grow up around a lot of Caribbeans. I grew up a lot around a lot of Americans. Some people from Europe. Different. But I think my kids. I wanted to give that to them, and
Mm,
so exposure. Just get out there as much as you possibly can to learn about different cultures. That's where I would go with that.
yeah.
If that
Yeah.
includes doing a variety of different if you want to talk about yoga, don't just go to a studio. Try some
Right.
stuff in the park. Try some um, you can just leave your town and do it somewhere else, see how that feels.
Right.
It's just I just look at I guess I look at life differently as a white person
Hmm.
because of my
Because you,
specifically.
yeah. Yeah. But I think that that's helpful because I think a lot of people get afraid to just do that.
That's it. They're afraid, or xenophobic or whatever, and
Right.
my husband and I are both very open to everything. And, my husband grew up in a very diverse town as well, which is Brockton, Massachusetts. Brockton
Brockton.
gets
Yes.
it's a bad rap because, there's some criminal stuff going on in certain parts of town, but, it shaped him, I think,
Hmm.
shaped him. And I think he's aware of that. That's his hometown, and
Right. Hmm.
he always will claim it,
Right.
even if people are afraid of that town or they speak poorly of that town. It's his
Right.
town, you know?
Right.
and and same goes with me in military, and so just exposure is everything, you know.
Exposure is everything. And it doesn't mean, well, it does mean a couple of things. Like you said, you just got to step outside the box in your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that does mean physically. You have to go places and do things. And, you know, when you
Mm-hmm.
when you travel, just don't look for Kentucky Fried Chicken or I'm
There's plenty
serious.
of that when I was in Germany. I know, like American
Seriously.
Burger King or whatever. I'm like, look, you can, or that music store. Like I sent a lot of people to that music store to get because they wanted new CDs, and I'm like, they have new CDs. You don't have to buy it on an army base or something like that,
Right.
or an American, because they don't
Right.
always have access to it. So
Right.
because I had the issue with what I mentioned earlier, um, they still had a good variety of
Variety
new
of
CDs.
music. Right.
What I mean?
It's
Yeah. You
really
just have to search
it's
for
reading books by people who don't look like you. It's, watching movies about people or documentaries. There's just so much. So when people say, well, I
it.
don't know, okay, but it's not like there aren't these things that you can't do. There are
Hmm.
tons of things that you can do. I do them, so
Oh
can
yeah.
you. I don't know about, it's kind of like me asking Noah if she would, what do I know about Egypt? All I know is about a few things, pyramids and whatnot, and maybe a few things that I've read, but I don't know culturally a lot. I
Right.
don't. And so I'm very interested, and you travel, you go, well, I'll taste it. Doesn't look like something I would like, but I'll taste it.
Yeah. I've done that a lot with Asian food. You know, I remember I never wanted to try sushi, and then I tried it, and I was like, "Whoa, I do love
Like
this," you know. Or the
exactly.
dim sum, chicken feet and or duck feet, things like
Yes.
that. Chicken liver, chicken hearts that they sell at Brazilian restaurants.
Yes.
You know, just try it. You know what I mean? Try it. Try, even if you
So
don't like it, try
even if
it.
you don't like
Geez,
it,
some
you just
eat
try
it for a
it.
reason.
Right.
People eat it for a reason. You know, they like
Thank you.
it. And that's why I budget. You know what I mean?
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time on this Sunday morning for you, um,
Oh,
to chat. And I appreciate you dropping your pearls of wisdom for folks. I know that it's going to be meaningful, and I'm grateful, and I'm so glad that we're connected. And we had hopes of being able to connect, and we could jet up, well, drive up, I should say, to Boston when we've flown in to go into Connecticut to visit family, but it's like everything COVID is just messing up all my stuff. It's like,
I know. I know. It's crazy.
but
It is crazy.
it is
Weird
one of
world
the
we're living
first things I will say. It is one of the first things that we're doing is to visit family in New London. So, yeah, so look for me because I'm coming.
in. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll be there. I'll be there.
All right. Thanks so
One
much,
last thing.
Annette.
No problem. No problem. One last thing I will say. Instagram has been a huge source of motivation and culture, and it's really different bodies, different everything, and
Mm,
you find Instagram, and you don't find that everywhere, like
it's
Yoga
true.
Journal.
Like local.
Now I will let you go.
Thank you for that tidbit.
Um,
Okay. All right. Love you, honey. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Take care.